Thank you, Madison, and thank you, Mindy, and all of you participants who are joining us today. It looks like we've got about 50 people here so far, and I'm glad you're all able to take a little time and join us for what should be a pretty interesting presentation. My name is Julie McDonald. I work for Minnesota's Lake Superior Coastal Program at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. And I am filled with gratitude for the work that I am able to do for the environment and for the community. Let's see, someone else maybe is going to admit people who are in the waiting room right now. I am just going to give a brief introduction to Mindy and then hand it over. She'll give a presentation and we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. I'm really glad Mindy was able to take a little time out of her busy schedule to join us today and shed a little light on what is happening with sustainability and climate action in Duluth, because there is a lot happening and it's a really important time. And in order for all of us to be kind of working in sync in a complementary fashion, it's great to know what is happening at the local level. I first met Mindy maybe about 25 years ago. She was a student worker at MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, when I was there. And I knew at that time she was a force to be reckoned with. That was certain. And then again, we worked together on a grant opportunity, bringing this wild idea to Minnesota, non-point education for municipal officials. It was kind of a unique thing, but Mindy was one of the go-to people in the community that could be counted on to get something done. And it was a very forward-thinking project. And of course, Mindy was right on board with that as well. We've had other opportunities to collaborate over the years, and I'm always grateful for her participation and leadership. Something you'll probably see throughout this presentation, Mindy is extremely sharp. She is highly productive, and she has the willingness to take on some very challenging work. And she can work with everyone and identify shared goals and bring us forward. And so for that, we are super lucky. I know back in about 2006, I encouraged Mindy to submit an application to be on the Planning Commission for the City of Duluth, to bring her expertise in watershed management and stormwater. And I think that was, I'm not sure how long you were there, Mindy, but it was a really great exercise, and probably educated a lot of people who just didn't have an understanding of the kind of stuff you brought to the table at that time. So I'm sure it was really challenging, especially in the beginning, but from a citizen's perspective, really grateful you were there and able to provide your service to the community. And I also know Mindy worked for the South St. Louis Soil and Water Conservation District. She worked for Minnesota's Lake Superior Coastal Program, and on to University of Minnesota Duluth in a sustainability coordinator role, and then now on to City of Duluth. So we're lucky to have her working for our community in so many ways. And I am very fortunate to be able to call you a colleague and a friend. So thanks very much for being here. And I'll just hand it over to you, Mindy. Thanks again.
Thank you, Julie. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate your kind words. I have to give credit, though. It was Nancy Schultz who really twisted my arm to apply for the Planning Commission. Several people had approached me about it a long time ago, and it was my first foray into how citizens have a voice in how decisions get made in the city. So it was a great learning experience, spending time on the Planning Commission. So thanks for bringing me down memory lane. I want to talk today, and this is my first time speaking at this group, so thank you for the invitation. Folks that organize the Twin Ports Climate Conversations, these are really important discussions that you're getting done in our area, and appreciate you facilitating those. So thanks to Madison and Julie for doing that. So yeah, after 12 years working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and work on change and climate action at the university, I saw this position open up and just felt myself pulled to it. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to work for the city. I thought today I will talk a little bit about my first 9 months, and I can share a little how my new role is working to help increase our capacity, connect departments, strengthen partnerships, leverage some resources external to the city, and work on some new strategies to get climate action into decision making of the city. I guess I'll just get started. So first, sustainability is about acknowledging that everything is connected. Our society, the economy, and the environment are all connected. Nowhere is this more visible really than the city of Duluth. We're a busy port city, but right on the shores of Lake Superior, this outstanding water resource. We've got miles of shoreline along the St. Louis River, 11,000 acres of green space within the city. And with all these abundant natural resources and this reputation as an outdoor city, sustainability has really naturally been a part of city priorities. In the past, worked to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows, create a Duluth natural areas plan, invest in trail and park systems, declaring a carbon reduction goal, creating an energy fund, having a robust stormwater utility program and watershed outreach program. Super grateful to my colleagues working in those to protect our streams in Lake Superior. There is just a lot going on within the city already. The city owns some utilities, a natural gas utility, which also has a conservation improvement program. And all these folks working on all these different things are now my colleagues. An exciting development is that now sustainability has a seat at the leadership table within the city of Duluth to further embed sustainability into our decision making. So I feel like it's another step forward to integrating environmental goals with our economic and social systems. My position as sustainability officer reports directly to our chief administrative officer. And so it really gives sustainability a seat at our leadership table. Next, oops, there we go. So I tried to boil what my position is down to 3 bullets to help explain this to my parents and friends about this new job I had taken. And I really see my role as first demonstrating that the city is doing our work to address environmental challenges and create a culture of sustainability within the city and within city staff. 2, I see my job to measure and communicate change. So tracking and sharing our progress is really vital to sustainability and being transparent. I feel like metrics are really the sensors out in our community that help find and characterize problems that we can bring to light and start working on solutions. So that measurement and communication is a vital piece for sustainability. And I'll share a few ways we're working to improve that. And then 3rd, I really see my seat here at the city to initiate change through projects and partnerships to inspire folks to work together to help on this big, complicated sustainability topic. One person can't do it alone, so really leveraging partnerships and bringing in external resources to help those get done. I want to acknowledge my sustainability team before I get too far into this. I mentioned my work is done through partnerships, and some of these are internal and some are external. I also firmly believe, of course, coming from higher ed, that this work can provide great opportunities for short-term projects, career-building folks in programs like AmeriCorps and Green Corps, and students who are working on class credit or required internships. So this is a team that I have assembled so far. I think a few of them might be on this call learning today with me, and so grateful for their help. First, I'll just kind of go clockwise. After myself is Lily Strelo, an AmeriCorps Vista, serving as an energy and sustainability assistant. She's also been helping a lot on our communications and metrics too. Caleb Montgomery is working as a waste reduction assistant. And then we have 3 interns from UMD and Lake Superior College that are working on communications and research, and also Faith, who's working on carbon sequestration. And we did little profiles of them on our Instagram, so I encourage you to get out there and check them out. They're doing great work. And now the semester's ending, so we'll have new interns coming from UMD in the spring, which I'm really excited about as well. Just a quick nod to my team. Of course, there are ways that citizens of Duluth can also get involved to help kind of advise the city on pathways for reducing emissions, for making energy progress. And one of these is one of the newer commissions in the city is the Energy Plan Commission. So these are residents that have chosen to spend their time talking about energy and encouraging the city to take action. And recently, this group has really been pushing for the city to adopt more internal renovation standards for existing buildings and new buildings. They're really pushing on adopting higher standards for energy efficiency in buildings, which is a great thing that they can encourage us to do. So we've been working really hard to provide some ideas, opportunities, look at what other cities are doing, and come up with a framework for that for Duluth. So thank you to all of these folks who serve on our Energy Plan Commission, so important in the city. And of course, the boards and commissions, volunteering, it's always open for applications. We have a few applications still on file for folks. So as folks cycle off the commission, we can interview and get new folks on the commission. So if you're interested, you can just go to the board and commissions page at the City of Duluth and please fill out an application. Even if there's not an opening right this minute, there will be openings. So encourage anyone that's really wants to get involved to go ahead and apply. All right, so I said I can't do this alone. One of the things I see is that I consider every city employee as my colleague in sustainability. I firmly believe this needs to be part of everyone's job or we will lose. So whether it's my colleagues in energy management, shout out to Alex Jackson, who's been an amazing colleague, our facilities group, our parks and recreation folks, public works staff, infrastructure staff, our engineering staff, our fleet services, our city forester, our planning department, our workforce development, we're really all in this together. And to help reinforce this idea and help identify the things that are going on and ideas for future work that we can do together, I conducted a staff survey. So I sent out a survey to all city staff and got some good results. I won't summarize everything here. On the right is sort of a graphic I included in an article that I wrote for Public Management Magazine that was just published in December. The article was called something like How to Start a Sustainability Office in a City. This is a job that I've done twice now. I started the Office of Sustainability at UMD. So this is my second time sort of establishing that office. And you learn some lessons along the way, and I just wanted to share those. So that was a fun article to write. But some of the good news from the staff survey was really that staff are engaged and want to include sustainability in their work. The survey was only open for a couple weeks, and we got 120 responses almost, and most folks said they're either very much or somewhat interested in integrating sustainability into their jobs. Importantly, folks emphasize that they want practical, reasonable solutions. They want to do the right thing. A lot of people emphasize that they care about our infrastructure. They care about being responsible with taxpayer resources, and they really want us to succeed and find this balance. So the survey also gave us some great content in how we can communicate with staff in the future. So the staff that I'm working with, the interns and Green Corps and AmeriCorps, that we can craft some materials internally for staff education as well. The motivation for why people want to work on sustainability surprised me. I really thought it would come from sort of like my supervisor wants me to do this, my supervisor assigned this, but it really came more from city staff values. They care about our environment and that this is just the right thing to do. They care about our resources and they want to support social justice, fairness, and equity. So there's this group of these top 4 responses that really showed me that this is a values-based thing for staff, not necessarily an assignment. Of course, money and time are the perceived barriers to working on sustainability. Folks were a little bit worried about complexity, cost, and timing, and mostly heard a lot about how we are really busy and we can't have an add-on chore on the top of our already tight workloads in a lot of areas. So that really helped me know that my fellow staff, that we need to really integrate this into our existing workloads and make sustainability about how we do our work and not necessarily any add-on or additional tasks. So that's city staff. I see them as my partners and collaborators. But our residents, the City of Duluth has a lot of active residents who care about energy, they care about sustainability, they care about the climate change they're already seeing, and the climate change that is to come in the future. So I see citizens and residents as really important resources, and luckily they haven't been waiting for the city to come up with their climate action plan. Residents have gotten together, Equilibrium 3 and members of the Duluth Climate and Energy Network have worked together to really develop and launch a citizens climate action plan for the city. How can individuals get involved and take action together and work together? So if you haven't checked out the Duluth Climate Action link from Equilibrium 3's website, I highly encourage you to do so. It's a great resource. And it really shows our city staff and leadership that our residents care about this and they want to see action. Of course, there's lots of public surveys out there. Engage with the U of M researchers who have been doing some surveys in Duluth and along the North Shore. And they've really shown that Duluth and North Shore residents are really aware of climate impacts and they feel vulnerable to the changes that are coming. I learned there's a new survey out now specific to Duluth asking about water and climate change. And these will be really informative for me and my work in how we can convince folks that this is important to our residents, that folks want to see action, they want to see us plan and be proactive on this. These types of perceptions and these studies about values, I think, just confirm that we're seeing climate change already happening. All right, so where am I going next? Oh, so in general, for the first 9 months, it feels a little bit like that, drinking water from a fire hose thing. There's a lot to learn. Of course, I've been a sustainability professional for a while, so I know what change is needed, how to kind of create change, but learning a new system of how to make change within a city government is a really steep learning curve. So I've been working really hard. I think one of the first things I needed to sort out was some of the metrics. How do we measure our progress? How do we measure where we're at? Our greenhouse gas emissions, of course, are a really important measure for the city since we do have a climate related goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. So I first wanted to see where we're at with that goal. So we had some preliminary data, and I'll tell you why it's preliminary in just a second, but it showed that we're pretty much on track right now for meeting that. As we know, when you start to work on the low-hanging fruit to reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, sometimes that work gets more challenging as you dive to get that second layer or that third layer of emissions down. But it was heartening to see when I began that we're on a good trend right now. One of the things when I was investigating our reporting requirements for our climate mayor's promise was that we really need to use an accepted protocol for greenhouse gas emission calculation. We're using a calculator that's sort of handmade spreadsheet, which it works. It's probably fairly accurate. I don't expect our results to change a whole lot. But in order to be really consistent over time, we're going to put those greenhouse gas emissions measurements into ClearPath, a calculator provided by local governments for sustainability, which we're now members of. So that, I think, will help us make sure that we're on track for this goal and keep track of those emissions over time. On the bottom right is a graph that just shows sort of the breakdown of where city emissions are coming from. So this is just municipal emissions and not our community emissions, but it helps for internal decision making around what we should be working on. Besides metrics, we also have Green Step Cities measurements that we do annually, and Duluth just reached step 4, which is really awesome. We're in the top 20% of Green Step cities in the state, so we need to keep that on track and keep reporting to that annually. And also been talking to folks from LHB about the Regional Indicators Project and how they're measuring community emissions and how we can keep that data going. I think if we're going to make community-wide goals, which I feel like our citizens and residents want us to, and I feel like there's a lot of city staff and leaders that want us to as well, we need to have a way to measure community emissions as well. So working on figuring out those metrics. Okay, on to communications. Firmly believe that communications are really important for transparency for this work. Worked really hard. Our AmeriCorps intern, Lily Strelo, thanks for her help helping me organize and get a new city website. The link is on the bottom left there. It's just duluthmn.gov/sustain, where you can find my email and contact information. And then also we put up an Instagram account to just share the stories and things that we're learning about around the city and how people can get involved, learn, take advantage of different programs for energy efficiency, etc. So metrics, communications, and then capacity building is basically how I can sum up my first 9 months on the job. And capacity building was really about getting some help, getting a AmeriCorps member serving with our city, also getting a Green Corps member serving with our city, because waste reduction is really important. And I don't want to spend a lot of my bandwidth on it, but we also need to make progress in it. So applying for these grants to get capacity was really important. Also applied for some scholarships to join the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, which has been super helpful. It gives me access to peer groups, webinars, tools, resources, and really folks that around the country in other cities that are ahead of Duluth in their planning and implementation of climate action programs. So we don't have to struggle through the same things. We can learn from others, and I'm a firm believer in learning from my peers. So that was really great. Early on in my tenure at the city, joined in late February, and of course COVID kind of hit in mid-March. And so being new and having a little bit of capacity, I raised my hand and said, what can I help with? There was an effort to get some emergency prevention shelter programs going to sort of decrowd the congregate shelters in Duluth for folks experiencing homelessness. So I just helped write some grants and bring in some resources for that effort as well, which is continuing even today to keep people safe. So there's been a lot of external resources that we've leveraged so far. There's a lot more I think that we can leverage and partner with in order to benefit climate action and sustainability in Duluth. And also working on some collaborative funding. A couple grants at the bottom here are really with this great network that was existing before I started this job called Great Lakes One Water. And it's a collaborative effort to work on increasing resiliency in Duluth in the face of climate change. And so they're working on some really cool stuff, and I've been really happy to work with them. We've submitted a Council of Mayors grant to continue that work that we'll hear about in late January to work on some neighborhood resiliency work and green infrastructure work. So that's exciting. Also, some other grants that we're working on are to get some backup power at our water plant to respond to extreme storm events and power outages in the future. And looking at some MnDOT funding. Alex Jackson and I applied for the first round, and we hope to be invited to apply formally for some EV vehicles for our fleet, some electric vehicles. The city doesn't have any EVs in its fleet yet. So this is a good program. If you can maybe proof of concept into a pilot program and do that at 20% of the cost, that's a great way to introduce EVs into our fleet. So we're hopeful to be successful there. And there'll be some future electric vehicle charging infrastructure for community that will apply to as well. So leveraging external resources is going to be part of how we address sustainability and climate action from the city. But just shifting gears here, it's really important to acknowledge that Duluth is in the news a lot about climate change. Folks around the state look to Duluth. They're noticing the challenges that we have. I think that this communication and attention to what the city is doing is great. It also puts a lot of pressure on a person when they get started. And within my first 2 months on the job, I had like 3 or 4 requests for interviews about how is Duluth going to do X, Y, Z around climate. And I was like, okay, give me some time. But it's also great because it gives you that sense of urgency that people care, people are watching us. Also, we're seeing, at the state level, the governor has a new sub-cabinet on climate. At the national level, our president and vice president-elect have, green recovery, green energy as part of their COVID recovery plans, highlighted front and center. And from the national level, the state level, everyone's looking to local level, to the local governments about really how to implement a lot of these things. So I think cities are a really important place for this action to take place. So we need to be ready. The amount of desire that there is out there in our community to see climate action, to see and us future-proof our community for climate change, it's incredible. And the reporting around climate change in the state is a good motivator. Every time I read an article or a reader's view or another synopsis of the flood 5 years later, 10 years later, like these things all help keep this front and center and keep us motivated to work on this. And we know from the data This is data from our senior climatologist at Minnesota DNR that climate is already changing in Duluth. And we're seeing, larger changes in northern Minnesota than the state overall, and especially in the winter. You see this middle graph in the winter warming. We're really losing those cold winter nights and mornings the most. And that's something that we'll have to think about as we lose ice and our seasons change. And how does it affect our species that are here, all these implications that it has for how we manage our land and resources. We're also seeing the trend, this is also on the left here from Kenny Blumenfeld, we're seeing a trend of more days with rain in the winter months, and less days with snow. These types of climate trends are related to hazards, and they're listed in our multi-hazard mitigation plan for St. Louis County. Climate data trends are called out in that report, along with mitigation actions and strategies for the city of Duluth. So folks are paying attention, folks are measuring change in Duluth. The public is seeing it, the public wants action. So it's time for Duluth to get climate action plan going. What is climate action? I presented to City Council a couple weeks back and wanted them to know that when people say climate action, this is usually stuff you probably already heard of, things that we are already doing and we just need to do more of. So you can break climate action down sort of into two broad categories. One is mitigation. So in the blue box here, mitigation is reducing and preventing emissions. Let's make the climate warming, let's mitigate the climate from warming. Let's reduce our contributions to this climate change. And so those are things like energy efficiency, working on our buildings, renewable energy, like the solar carport here in Canal Park, street lighting to LEDs, which saves a ton of energy, working on energy efficiency, encouraging efficiency through our conservation improvement programs, things like encouraging alternative transportation, things like planting trees and sequestering carbon, things like also, the transformation of our Duluth energy systems, our thermal district downtown. Going from an open loop steam district to a closed loop district that has hot water, there's a lot of efficiency gains in these types of things. But the other part of climate action is really about adaptation and resilience. How do we reduce vulnerability to the consequences of climate change that are coming? How do we be resilient to help us be more prepared for extreme weather events in the future? The adaptation and resiliency piece isn't as easy to understand as the mitigation piece, but it's just as important. How do we prepare for disasters? How do we plan for the storms of our future? I think a place that is doing this really well in the city is our stormwater department, and the folks working on stormwater management, stormwater utilities. They're really planning for, okay, we're going to have bigger rain events. We're going to have different rain on snow events. We're going to have to deal with water. We're going to have to integrate green infrastructure too. Other things, tourism, with the seasons changing, with fewer days of ice or snow, what are the implications that we need to adapt to and be resilient to in our parks and our tourist places? How do we respond to the higher lake levels around Canal Park and the flooding that happens, and the erosion on Park Point? Like, these are just some of the sort of infrastructure and adaptation things that Duluth is really going to have to think about. So when folks start climate action planning, you really start with metrics. This slide might not be super visible. I apologize for that. Hopefully your screen is bigger than mine. But you really start looking at the background. Where are your emissions coming from? Who is vulnerable in your community to climate? Studying the inventory of your emissions, the trends of those emissions, and then setting some goals. So luckily I didn't have to start from the very beginning in how to do a climate action plan. Really, Duluth has some background of climate vulnerability assessment has been completed for Duluth through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We have an inventory of emissions. Our energy coordinator has been tracking emissions and data. We do have a climate goal. It's in line with the Paris Agreement, 80% reduction by 2050. It's aligned with the state of Minnesota goal. So these first three steps are kind of, okay, we're here. The next steps are going to be a little bit harder, but they're the ones I'm really looking forward to. And those are, to start identifying your reduction strategies. You know what a lot of these are. But there would be an added element of analyzing the cost of these different options, both this cost that might be saved and then the cost that might be avoided in the future. And then setting a plan for adaptation and then an implementation program. How are we going to get this work implemented and done? So that's the real work. Luckily, I get to work on these bottom 3 steps. I didn't have to start at step number 1. So I'm really grateful for that. And when we start to look at climate action, there's lots of guiding documents. I've mentioned some of these already. But of course, our Imagine Duluth 2035 comprehensive plan update, that climate vulnerability assessment that shows what the population and neighborhood and community vulnerabilities are to climate change. The St. Louis County multi-hazard plan, our city energy plan, thanks to Alex Jackson and Eric Berkland and Mike LeBeau for working on how the city energy response is going to be. Of course, we have the Duluth Citizens Climate Action Plan, and then we have, city energy and action plans from around the state we can look to. Folks in Richfield are working on this, folks in, Eden Prairie, folks in St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Louis Park, even Red Wing, Minnesota has a climate action plan. So we can learn from others as well. But we do have these great guiding documents when it comes time to prioritize action, which is important. I mentioned the vulnerabilities, and one of the things that I quickly realized taking this job was the infrastructure is important. The size of our pipes, our energy resources, all of this infrastructure is super important. But the vulnerability of certain populations in Duluth is important too, and we need to, favor climate actions that prioritize how we can align equity with responding to climate change. When there are staff or schedule restrictions or funding restrictions, we need to apply strategies to priorities where they're going to serve vulnerable populations. And so in Duluth, these have been identified: folks under economic stress, folks with limited transportation, folks with disabilities, and older adults. We need to consider all of these metrics when we're picking and prioritizing climate action. And coming from, the university up at UMD, where I felt like, we could do a good job. We could focus sustainability around also serving our students, those who needed Champs Cupboard, or those who wanted the UMD free store to be open so they could, get access to materials and things. In the city, it's going to be a little more complicated, of course, and I'll need a lot of help from my colleagues, and also our great, network of foundations, nonprofit organizations, and experts in the community, and even community members who know what's going on in their neighborhoods better than I do. So listening will be really important. One of the things, I just read a book called All We Can Save, and one of the quotes from it was this one: when disasters happen, the person right in front of you is your best chance of survival. And that's when we understood the times we will be facing are going to require us to recognize that the most important thing around us is community. This quote really caught me in this chapter by Christine Nieves Rodriguez. I feel like this is a call to recognize that community building and neighborhood strength is part of our infrastructure. It's not all just pipes and wires. People are part of this fabric of how we can be resilient, and community building and neighborhoods need to be part of our strategies too. So what goes in a climate action work plan? City staff who might be on this call or who would listen to the city council update hopefully recognize their work in this climate action work plan, because this is not all new work. Climate action overlaps with the foundational plans that we have for the city. It aligns with some of the foundational things we know we need to work on in our infrastructure and utilities. Strategies from our comp plan that have been identified for transportation. And we'll just need some internal alignment to create some high level, sustainability goals, and hopefully get some short-term strategies identified so we can start working together. Like many organizations, there are silos within the city, and we need to find a way around those silos and start working together more proactively around climate change. So this is the type of strategies that I've seen in pretty ubiquitously in city climate action plans across the state. And recognizing that a lot of these actions have co-benefits. Maybe they're reducing emissions, maybe they're helping sequester emissions, but they also have these added values. And some of them can be hard to quantify, like avoided costs. but others can be seen and felt by our citizens. So it's important to acknowledge those. Not all of them will always have a cost savings. Some of them might be investments that pay off in different ways. So I mentioned other cities are on this. Was just looking last week at Red Wing's plan and their community-wide goals up in this box in the corner here, and then also their strategies. Nothing super surprising. And some of the strategies that Red Wing has are things that Duluth is already working on, which is great. Things like, get a complete streets policy. Well, that's something Duluth has already been working on. Reducing the waste stream. Well, we've got our Green Corps member working with community to do this. I'm not daunted by the work. I'm excited for the work. Really excited to dive in and get started on it. This is just one more example from Richfield, Minnesota, and their 5 major strategies. Again, nothing surprising when you start to think about what climate action is going to look like. It's going to be efficiency. It's going to be renewables. It's going to be buildings. It's going to be your natural resources. It's going to be waste. And it's going to be things that promote equity and justice also. So looking forward, how do we break out of silos? How do we get started to plan the city response? Well, one of the ideas is developing a city interdepartmental team to work on sustainability goals and actions. So this work is just getting started, but starting right after the new year, we're going to pull together leaders from all departments across the city to start thinking about what are our high-level sustainability goals in Duluth. How and what should our climate action work plan address? And how do we prioritize taking action on those items? And then we should be just sharing our technical knowledge and skills around all these areas. This is something that I'm really looking forward to, is getting to the heart of this. And the reason why is really because when we work on climate action, we're really trying to work on what's sometimes referred to as an upstream problem. If any of you have read that book, Upstream, by the Heath brothers, Chip Heath, I think is the author, they really talk about how the 3 barriers that you need to overcome in these triangles here are that people don't see the problem, or that they don't own the problem, or that they're so busy with their day-to-day that they can't deal with that right now. My hope is that the city's sustainability advisory team will help us get past that tunneling and help folks see that, yes, the sustainability work really does cross departments. This is our work. We should own this, and these are the strategies that we can do to address it. So I'm excited to get that group together. I think our infrastructure, from our water, stormwater, gas, district energy things, is foundational. We're going to have to work on adapting those and maintaining those. There'll be critical ways to avoid the impacts and damages in the future. But we also have to think about other community actions and policies that we might want to promote too. So other things looking forward, sustainable buildings policy. I mentioned that our Energy Plan Commission is pushing for that internally for the city. So that's work that's ongoing. Partnered with our property and facilities management group, working to get some electric vehicle grants to help further adoption of these sort of zero tailpipe emission vehicles in the city and fleets. The utility and infrastructure funding and adaptation and infrastructure projects will be super important. And I put an example of just an infographic that I created on the right here. The city water, we got a question. And the question was emailed to me about how our water district is working to reduce water loss in the pipes. And over 10 years from 2008 to 2018, some of the main water mains that were replaced in the city were ones that there were leaks and problems with. But that work over a decade helped reduce the amount of electricity needed to pump water by 30%. So that's the type of work where you can have greenhouse gas benefits at the same time as you're working to upgrade your infrastructure and better serve the city. So it's a great example of how infrastructure investments can really help us on this climate action journey. There'll be lots of partnership projects already looking at where are the large-scale solar sites that we might be able to take advantage of in the city of Duluth. Recently, a statewide report about closed landfills came out and identified a closed landfill in Duluth as one of the top opportunities to install solar. When you close a landfill, there's really nothing else that can go there. It's just land that's been remediated that needs to just sort of sit there. You can't build on it. You can't put a foundation for a building on it. So it's a great place for solar. there's a lot of barriers and sort of legal bonded repair rehabilitation funds, and if it's a bonded one, if it's closed, who closed it, who owns it. There's some ownership issues, certainly some environmental issues to make sure that you don't exacerbate any problems there, but that's a great opportunity for Duluth. There's also some brownfield sites in Duluth. I've heard from a couple different citizens. The Isaac Walton League folks wrote to me, like, why aren't we putting solar on some of the brownfields that we have, especially like that U.S. Steel site that's in Duluth. So those are some things to look forward to diving into in the future. One thing we're working on right now, Lily Strelo and myself are working with Rocky Mountain Institute on a Solarize campaign, and just like figuring out, hey, could we get a solar app so people can easily apply for solar? Can we do a solar bulk buy campaign to reduce the cost? More on that on the next slide. And then how can we work on encouraging low-income solar? Minnesota Power now has a low-income solar rebate program that's doubled in size. So how do we take advantage of that for the city of Duluth? What are the things that the city can do to help encourage that? I mentioned advanced building standards before, and then this resiliency work with neighborhoods. That Great Lakes One Water group has been just awesome. So inspired to meet with them and to see how they're working on this sort of community neighborhood infrastructure and the personal resiliency items that they're working on. So super grateful to be part of that and hope that will continue. I mentioned this solar bulk buy campaign. This information is hot off the press from Solar United Neighbors. They let me know that they'll be launching on January 12th at 6:30 at night, and people can come and get information about how folks can sign up on a solar co-op to help save money by buying in bulk versus buying your solar array on your own. So if this is something that interests you, we'll make sure that this link gets shared in the slides. I think we can do that on the website. Probably Madison can get that done, or you can just email me too. But there's a lot of local partners that are working in this, including One Roof with Solar United Neighbors. I think it's cool to have a bulk buy program. I think it's even better to learn more about how these work so that our knowledge and our community capacity can increase in the future. And Equilibrium 3 and City of Duluth will be working on some energy projects related to Solarize campaign too. Well, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'll just summarize that when I ended with City Council update a couple weeks ago, I really emphasized that sustainability can be seen as just good governance. It's about upholding multiple values at one time. It's about setting high expectations for our city operations. And then when it comes to projects, policies, and infrastructure, these are the questions that we can ask around climate action. Does this save energy? Does it reduce emissions? Does this increase efficiency? Does this adapt our infrastructure, operations, and systems to the climate change that's expected in our future? And is it a flexible platform for future change? How can we avoid locking ourselves into long-term decisions, such as investing in more natural gas-fired infrastructure? Is there a way to avoid that? Is there a way to use existing infrastructure? Is there a way to electrify? These are the types of questions that we should be asking. There's multiple co-benefits. Working on climate action can protect health, improve housing, comfort, cleaner air and water, increased economic activity, residential amenities, costs avoided, resources saved. At times cost savings, not always, but there's definitely co-benefits that we should be looking for when we're looking to do climate action. So I feel like I've talked for a long time, but I hope that was a glimpse into what I've been working on the past 9 months, my first 9 months of this job. I'm super excited to continue this work to get to that sort of implementation phase. And I will take some questions. I think folks are ready to maybe do some questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mindy. I don't know if you do want to put up a way to contact you, but anyway, we could get a virtual round of applause for Mindy. Thank you so much. It's a great update. I'm going to just tell you all something before everyone leaves the room here, but we will not be having our January climate conversation, where we will encourage all of you to attend the Minnesota Climate Adaptation Conference on January 20th, called Adaptation Angles: How Multiple Perspectives Help Us See the Big Picture. I think it is half a day. I'd have to look into that, but there is a registration fee of $30. So I will put a link in the chat here. And we do have a question or two in the questions for you. Jenna Yakel asked,